right. So we were talking before this. I just told him to start recording. Okay, so there's these two. They were physicists. I should probably look it up, but I'm not gonna. I'm never gonna look anything up. I'm just gonna go. But they were trying to figure out why electrons all look the same, right? Like every electron they had seen was the same size and weight and shape.
Yeah.
And one of them called the other and said, "I figured it out. They're all the same electron." He thinks that the universe is just one electron perpetrating itself over the entire universe over and over again, right? It's just one. And I mean, he's probably not right, but that sounds cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, I am so obsessed with all of it, like with quantum mechanics, but also space. Like I'm all about the little stuff and the big stuff, because I think if we zoom in far enough, we might just end up seeing ourselves. Yeah. Like, we might just find out that it's all...
That we actually made ourselves from the future or some bullshit like that.
Or that we're just... That none of it makes any sense. That once you zoom all the way in, like, if you could get a microscope that just zoomed in as far as you could imagine, just keep going deeper and deeper... Eventually, you zoom in and see yourself looking through a microscope. Like, I don't know if there's any beginning or end. I think it's just all
cyclical,
right? Like, I don't know what it is. None of it makes any sense to me.
So on this episode of Good Luck and Have Fun,
I'm Devin.
I think we're going to be talking about philosophical stuff in such a way that
nobody will understand.
Nobody will understand,
including ourselves, which is good.
Yeah, that's okay. Before this, we were both talking about how we think that there is a superpower, or like a creator.
Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna go specifically. Like, how I was reading about the Large Hadron Collider. We both agreed. They slammed these atoms together and they said we made a little Big Bang. Basically, we made I think that might be what happened. I think that someone or something was smashing atoms together and made a Big Bang, and it was our Big Bang, and that's where our universe came from. Just some guy, and he doesn't know that he created a whole universe. Like, this guy is like, he's just looking at numbers on a sheet. He just can't look far enough down and see us.
And we're quarks on an atom.
We're just quarks on an atom, dude. We're just a speck of dust in a rainbow, in a moonbeam, dude. It's all when you start to zoom out, you really realize how little everything is. Like, really, really unbelievable. Like, okay, so I love Interstellar, which I know everybody like. I know it's sort of a joke. Like, I know some people make fun of it, but I don't care. I love it.
It's the idea of string theory, though. Right. And I think they do a really good job of...
I'm not even that part. The part that really messed with me, all right, was at the beginning. Well, not the real beginning, but when they go to the wormhole that's out by Saturn, right? That's what they say. It's out by Saturn.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Okay, so I was watching that, and they fly this spaceship to Saturn. Well... The furthest a human being has ever been from Earth right now is the dark side of the moon, as the Apollo 11, maybe? I can't remember exactly which ones, but they went around the moon for a gravity assist and came back to Earth.
Yeah.
That's the furthest. That's 250,000 miles, right, from Earth. Hold on, I'm looking it up. I know I said I wouldn't, but now I want to know. Saturn, I'm pretty sure it's over 1.2 billion kilometers, 746 million miles.
That's far,
right? That's 746 times 4 further than we've ever been. And I'm like, that's what people should be crazy about. Like, how the hell did they get to Saturn? Like, and I mean, sure, we've sent we've got satellites out there, and what? Why can't I?
Well, yeah, but those were sent off in like the 60s.
Right.
60s and
but
70s.
I'm saying we've got those things out there billions of miles away or whatever, but humans have been 250,000, and that's it. There's so much that we haven't seen or like, I mean, a mission to Mars that is going to happen soon enough. That's absolutely mind-boggling. It's so much further than we've ever been. And once you start to take things and scale them out that way, everything starts to become, I think it becomes more personal. Like, I feel like it shouldn't, but it does. But because the smaller it makes me feel, the smaller I realize everyone is, and that we're all just quirks on an atom, right? Like,
yeah.
Not we don't know what we are. Nobody really knows what we are. We don't know what happened before we were born or what's going to happen when we die, but we're all stuck here together for a little bit. And this is all we have, and we don't know if we have anything else, and we need to be I don't know what we need to be doing. I feel like, if we start the next step, right? The next step for humans right now, I think, is planetary expansion, right?
Yeah, it's the only thing left.
Right.
Or living underneath the Earth, like the Earth's crust.
Right, but that's not enough. It's just not enough. It's so little.
Well, it's not. But like when you take into consideration that like Elon Musk is creating that underground
Hyperloop.
Well, the Hyperloop, yes, but I'm talking about, this is a tunnel, specifically in LA, that he wants to create, where you pull off on the side of the road and it takes you down, and it locks your wheels so that you can't go anywhere, and then it fires off, and you go like 100 kilometers an hour to your destination. You come back up. So instead of it taking 45 minutes for you to get from, the south side of LA to the middle of LA, it only takes you 5 minutes.
I think that's what the Hyperloop is.
No, the Hyperloop is a. I think this is on the East Coast. I'm not 100% certain.
I'm pretty sure he just got something from DC to do it.
Yes, it's a train that's supposed to go. It's a super train that sits on top of magnets.
Is it a mag train? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was an underground thing.
No, it's incredibly fast. Arguably as fast as the one that they've got in Japan, maybe faster. And he was going into. I watched a talk where he was going into like how they were going to, put brakes in place and stuff like that, and it was all going to be magnetized.
See, this also. This is something else I was thinking about. This is going to be very. By the way, this is a Good Luck Have Fun podcast. I'm Devin,
and this is Josh.
We'll work on that. We'll cut all this out. But
yeah, right.
Like, we base so many things on these numbers, right? I was thinking about it playing Overwatch, but it also, I was watching the Olympics at the same time. I had the Olympics on the TV, right? Yeah. And I'm watching it, and we're deciding, like, the difference between my reaction time and the reaction time of a professional Overwatch player when playing the game is not that significant in the grand scheme. I mean, we're talking like he's a second faster than I am.
Yeah, it's like 0.5 to a second more in general. The trick is accuracy. The trick with that is just, by the way, is accuracy and muscle memory. So knowing exactly how tall something is, where the head shot is going to be, things like that. And those are the things that make the difference.
And you're talking centimeters to millimeters, right?
In most cases.
We've given ourselves these sort of it's these minute I don't know how to describe it, like this direction where we have to we're so this is it's a gaming podcast, so I guess I'll go try to put it through the spectrum of games, but we're all, when I'm playing Heroes of the Storm or Overwatch or anything, we're letting so much ride on less than split seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is almost, I mean, it's impossible for anyone to be able. Wow, this is not. I probably should have thought this more through before I started talking, but like
it's certainly not impossible. I think I understand where you're going.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying it's such an impossible standard to live by, right?
To live by, sure, but this ties back into what I believe the most about life in general is just like day-to-day self-improvement. So like if you go from, and this is what gets us to Mars, it's things like this general day-to-day improvement is, you have a vision of yourself. You want to be this really illustrious Hearthstone player or something. So rather than put the losses on the game or put the losses on the opponent or luck of the draw, you say, could I have saved myself that extra HP by not playing this card earlier? Right. Or could I have removed that card if I would have saved this one instead, which got me down to exact lethal instead of, the other minion that I needed to kill with the 4 damage that had the +1 attack to it, right? So it's those sorts of like small, as you put it, small minute details that make self-improvement.
Right. Okay. Yes, I agree. But here's my problem. I've been realizing that these I base so much of my life on minute small numbers, right? Like,
oh, I see where you're going.
When I'm playing games, when I'm watching, like time especially, we're talking. It's always going. I don't know why. Whoever invented time, not a fan.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so say I am improving every day. Like, in the end, where do you end up, right? Here I'm having trouble recently trying to figure out where I want to go. Right? Where I want my path to lead.
Yeah.
Because there's so many. I feel like everyone is sort of pushed towards these things and told that they want them, and you just sort of agree because it's what everybody wants, right? Yeah. Everybody wants these things.
So, as an example, you should go to college and get yourself a degree and do this, that, and the other thing.
Of course, right. Everybody says that.
The truth to that statement is you should continuously learn. Because when you go to college, they mold you into what people want. If you're a self-starter and you're creative, you're better off. What I don't like about colleges is they don't teach you to think outside of the box. They put you in the box and they teach you how to think in the box, right? That's what I would consider the framework. That's why I'm such a fan of extending out my level of comfortability.
Yeah, comfortability.
From technology, which I understand very well, to business, which if I went to a business school, they would have taught me all of this stuff and I'd be breezing at the moment. But the fact is that there's so many small, minute pieces of detail that are missing that I'm pretty sure that if I went to school for it, they wouldn't have taught me. So I would have learned some of these things, but I would have at least had a baseline, right, to start off. Right. But it's similar to, like, I went to school for, when I went to school for technology, they taught me how to use a level 1. For anybody that doesn't understand what that means, it's like or layer 1, not level 1. Layer 1 switch, layer 2 switch, which is like, you got the network layer and then you've got the transport layer right above that, I believe. And I'm sure I'm probably wrong. Went to school for this shit. But then you got
all that stuff was outside the box. So
yeah. Well, no, all this stuff is inside the box. That's what I'm saying, right?
That's what I'm trying to cut you some slack.
Yeah, man. I got you. But let's assume it is the transport layer, even if I am wrong. But now they're coming out with things like layer 4 switches, layer 5, layer 6, layer 7. They can do other things than just transport data. They can scan it, right? Like just small things like that change the entire course of it. But the person that did that versus the person that created the switch in the first place is probably looking at this thing completely different. This guy went to school, got a degree, said, I want to take a hub and turn it into a switch that's faster and more reasonable and doesn't have any issues with collisions, and when it does, it self-fixes itself, right? The guy that's scanning things on layer 7, why would you ever scan something on layer 7? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Other than security reasons, like, there's no point. Right. So somebody had to think outside of the box to get us to a switch or a load balancer or whatever that is at that higher level. So extending myself into business is doing something similar, right? Everybody else is so focused on what they learned in school and how they can operate, and I'm looking at it from a different lens. How can I improve things more efficiently with less people? Do more with less, right? And that's the kind of mentality that I'm seeing come out of like Elon Musk, right? How do I do more to improve the ecology of the world, I guess, the environment, with having the ability to give it to a middle class citizen, because that's your goal. That's the majority, right? We're all driving 1990 Toyota Camrys that are spitting off emissions like nobody's business.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Elon's trying to get you down to like a $30,000 car that's chargeable.
This is a huge thing for me lately. Imagine we know what a good car would be. What we could imagine the perfect car. Economical, gets electric, doesn't put out emissions.
Sure.
Goes certain the distance you need to go, right? If we know the ideal, why are we wasting our time with anything else? Right? Why are we even wasting our we know I think the royal everybody sort of knows gas is done. Soon we're not going to need to use gas anymore, which we shouldn't have to, because it's right. It's absurd that we have to take oil like the dead dinosaurs or whatever it is, and pull it out of the ground and burn it when we know that we don't have to do that. I feel like there's so many wasted resources on if when you imagine the future.
Well, it's not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. When you imagine the future, how do you imagine it? Okay, I'll just say it for me. You in science fiction, you sort of see everybody, dressed kind of similarly, or I guess I'm imagining Star Trek. I don't know, but you're sort of. Life seems easier, right? Everything seems a little more homogenized, I guess. So imagine if all the cars were just the same. We just said, this is what a car should be. It gets you from here to here. It doesn't put out a bunch of emissions. It doesn't. I don't understand how cosmetics have somehow permeated through everything, right? The difference between two cars that are $100,000 and $20,000 are not really that significant,
True.
In the end, they're just pieces of metal that get you from one place to another, right? I guess what's been driving me insane, I guess, is that I've been thinking, just sort of going through human evolution, right? The next step is planetary, right? We get on another planet. Okay, so the next step after that is we're expanding, right? It sort of comes down to the basic, you know, that animal feeling, right? Of having to keep the species alive, keep going. We need to get, we need to perpetuate.
Well, only certain people have that belief.
But I think like I mean like deep down, like the lizard brain, like we the self-preservation, like
yeah, sure.
You know, we want to get off the planet, not necessarily because, I mean, we want to explore, but it's also right now we have all our eggs in one basket. I mean, what killed the dinosaurs? Giant meteor hit the Earth, right? Yeah. What's stopping that from happening now?
Nothing. But
Nothing.
in this day and age, we would all have created bunkers in the backyard type stuff, right? Like Fallout.
Right, but then it knocks us back how many years, right? How many decades, a millennia? Who knows? Like how much does this, if that were to happen, and I mean,
all right. So dipping back a little bit into your car thing, right? So I was drawing up some notes here to keep myself in line.
Mm-hmm.
So with the way that technology just in general works, right? Whether it be mechanical or electrical, it all plays. It's got an evolution just like humans do, right? So when you take into account that the car actually started off as a horse and buggy, then your horse dies, and now you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere. Then so we said, okay, horses die way too often. There's too many risks involved, right? We have to shoot our horses because they break an ankle. We have to do this. We have to do that, right? There's just so much, and there's a ton of upkeep. You're shoveling shit. You're going out and buying hay so that they have something to eat. Trying to find water that is not contaminated, things like that. So somebody thought, what if I had a horse that doesn't have the requirement of feeding it, getting it, food and water, sheltering it, all these things.
A horseless carriage.
A horseless carriage, right. And so now we have a car that's 30 miles an hour, but it's bad for your health. And anybody that tells you that it's not, if you go back to the 1950s, it might have been even the 40s, there was an incident in London where they started to have a lot of like coal smoke type stuff, and it turned into, I forget what it's called technically, but it turned into a fog, and it killed hundreds of people because of carbon monoxide poisoning, right? So these cars are emitting those emissions, right? I don't think anybody would dispute that, even the people that don't believe in climate change. Then we get up to, so those moved at like 30 miles an hour. They didn't go very fast. Then we moved up to 50 miles an hour. It's still bad. We're getting places faster, but the emissions are probably improved a little bit, but they're still bad. Then we get up to like 70 and 100 miles an hour, right? Still bad. We're still talking about like the 70s and 80s at this point, like 60s, 70s, 80s. We're definitely getting places faster. We can hit 100 miles an hour, but nobody's driving that fast. So that has the most up-to-date current technology in it. That's like, radio waves, and you've got some other things that are, involved in that. I mean, you had radio waves back in the 60s, but you get the point. Yeah. Then you get up to a point where now we understand that the economy is, or the why do I keep saying that? The environment is bad, right? Like, it's bad for the environment. Places like California, and it's prominent even in China, although I don't think they put anything in place to fix it. Carbon monoxide emissions are just bad, so they started instituting requirements to put things like ethanol into cars so that it emits less carbon monoxide. When you continue down this path, eventually you're just looking at clean energy, right? So this is where Elon Musk comes into play, right? He says, well, you guys keep, instituting more and different kinds of fuel. Why don't you just change it, right? Why don't you just, let's take it back to the drawing board. We have electricity now. Why don't we just make our lithium batteries better, right? So he goes and he creates a bunch of lithium battery factories to bring the price of lithium batteries down. Like, that's what he did. He oversaturated the market on purpose to bring the cost of those batteries down.
Right.
And they have incredible amounts of living time, like lifetime. And the charges are incredibly fast in comparison to gas. It's still slower, but you can charge your phone in about an hour, right? So we're still not quite there. The convenience factor isn't as immediate as it is with gas. I'm still sitting at a Tesla charging station for an hour, right? So then we start talking about, how do I improve it to the point that it's like fuel, but not fuel? So now we're talking about research. So all of these things, it's a step-by-step equation. For people like you, because I'm the same way, I see the end game, right? And I don't care what steps I have to take to get to the end game, as long as I'm compliant, it's legal, and I can get there. Because you see the end game doesn't mean that everybody does, and it doesn't mean that all of the technology exists to get to the end game. Now, as a whole, unfortunately, what created these steps is capitalism, right? Everybody's got to make money to survive. If you don't make money, then there's no way for you to do anything. I can't go to Tesla and say, I want a car, right? And they just give you one. It doesn't work that way. If it did, that would be nice, right? And it would be better for everybody. But at the end of the day, what people need to remember is that because of capitalism, in a nutshell, you have to go on a step-by-step basis, because we have to pay the people to do the research, to create the technology, to take the extra step.
Okay. Here's where I feel like I'm going to lose some people, which is fine. But we have the resources, right?
Do we?
To feed I'm just talking to feed everyone, right? We could feed everyone easily, right? We could give everyone a place to live, right? Okay. We have the resources. I'm not saying, we have people right now everywhere that are just sort of stuck, right? We have them. They're doing these things, right? And I'll use fast food as an example, right? So many people work fast food, right? We know that those jobs suck. We know that it sucks to work in fast food. Nobody wants to work at McDonald's, right? But people have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But why? Why are we using our resources the way we are, right?
So that's a convenience factor. Okay, so let's take a step back into like the 60s and 70s when these chains started popping up. As people move faster, we need faster ways to do things like that our body or needs.
Right. This is where I'm sort of headed. We could provide food that is nutritious, right? Filling, and that gives you everything you need throughout the day, right?
Okay.
But instead, we have a million different places, right?
Yeah.
To get a million different things. Because we've all become sort of conditioned. Like, listen, I am 100% an addict to Elio's Pizza, right?
Okay.
Have you ever had Elio's?
No.
They're little rectangle pizzas you put in the oven, and they're definitely, everyone takes a few minutes off of my life, and I know that. But my grandmother made them for me when I was a kid, and I love them, and I will always love them, right?
Yeah.
But I understand that if they came out with, like, I know they already have something, I think it's called Soylent or something.
Yes.
Right, where you just drink it, and it's got all your stuff for the day or whatever, or for the meal.
Sure, it's a new Slim Fast.
Right, but it in my mind, all right, this is where I go when I try to think how to move everything forward, how to get to the next level. If we take all those resources and just accept, oh God, this is where I know, I'm crazy. Okay, I just want to specify that I know that I'm insane. If we just took that Soylent or whatever, and that was what food was, you never have to worry about food ever again.
Sure.
All you do is and I know people want those choices. I love burgers, I love pizza, I love lots of food, I love candy, I love it all, right? But I understand that if there was a point where they said, drink this, that's it. I think we almost need it. We almost need to get to that point where we just say all this cosmetic stuff is holding us back, right? When I really go down the rabbit hole of evolution, I think that we might have reached the point. I think we may have reached the end of human evolution. And by that I mean, we know what computers are capable of, right? We know that after a long enough time, with enough research, a computer is going to be able to do what a human brain can do, right? Mm-hmm. Eventually it's going to happen just by the way that we move forward. Once we hit that point, which isn't that far away, I think, I feel like the only logical way to make sure that our knowledge that we've accumulated as a human species goes forward is to put them in machines, right? To make this like artificial intelligence.
You mean like the Borg from Star Trek?
Yes, I do kind of mean like the Borg. Like, I think that is where it goes. I think that because humans are
finite,
not just finite, but fragile. Yeah. Like, I mean, we could die at any, cancer, or a disease, or a rock falls on our head, or anything, right? I think that the next step is creating humans, quote unquote, that aren't so fragile, which I know just ends up being a robot, but I think that we've reached the point where we can guide our own evolution, right? We've reached a knowledge point.
Yeah, humans have always been tool users as opposed to allowing nature to take its course to become something different.
And I think we have become more powerful than nature. I think that's pretty obvious now. I mean, nature's fighting back, especially with climate change, but what I'm saying is, like, we...
See, I'm gonna have to stop you because I do think you're going too far down the rabbit hole. Computers, everybody talks about what are we gonna do, right? Computers offer us the opportunity to focus more on science and research. That's what they offer, right? Humans are better at science and research than a computer ever will. Now, don't get me wrong, a computer can analyze the shit out of something. And we will. We'll take it, we'll We'll say, I wonder if I can get from here to the moon in 2 seconds. What would it take to do that? Well, to a computer's knowledge, based upon all of the information that we've provided to it, it's going to be able to calculate within a few seconds instead of days how long it's going to take you to get to the moon with all of the available resources that you have on the Earth. Right? Mm-hmm. So then there's going to be some scientist that goes, I wonder if there's another material on Earth that we don't know about yet. Or maybe there's a material on the moon that we don't know about yet. Or maybe there's a material on Mars that we can use that we don't know about yet. So we go out and we start to experiment with this stuff. As an example, right? Nobody knew that oil was going to burn when it burned. And they didn't know that it was going to put off an energy that could be harnessed to run a car. Just playing off of our previous example. If I go to Mars and I find this new stone, right? I have no idea what it does. So now I'm going to go play with it. I'm going to electrify it. I'm going to light it on fire. I'm going to do these things that a computer can't do, right? And they can't. Because afterwards, you have to creatively think about how this affects the human body and the human condition.
All right, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that we can do this now, but I'm saying with the way technology is going forward, like we understand how a brain works, right? Bunch of electrical energy firing off on neurons, things are happening, right? It's not that different from a computer.
Well,
it's a bunch of...
We're mimicking computers. When we created them, I don't think we knew we were, but we definitely recreated the infrastructure for biology because biology works one way.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so this is... Okay, right? As we evolve further, right? As we evolve... Like... We are the gods of technology, right? We are the ones who take technology and created it. Yep. We created it and we nurtured it and we took it forward and we built it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a point where we can create a computer that can mimic everything that a human being can do, right?
Yeah, I mean, so this goes two ways, all right? So you're going down one path and I'm sticking to the other. So my hope for humanity is that we don't choose to allow computers to become our biology. This is a choice that you get to make.
Right,
okay?
But here...
And then, this is what happens, right? You're going to have two people, just like we're doing right now. You're going to have the ethical scientist that's sitting on one side of the table and the extremist that is taking it to the next level for evolution.
By the way, he pointed at himself when he said ethical, and he pointed at me.
You're talking about taking the consciousness of a human being and sticking it inside of a robot so that it lasts forever. And
not exactly. That's not exactly what I'm trying to... now that you say that, now that I realize that is kind of how it's coming off, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to take a person's consciousness and put it into a robot. I'm trying to create a consciousness that is itself.
You're creating AI, and okay, so that makes this even worse, in my opinion.
But no, I think okay. So you're saying we're trying to keep the human race going, right?
Yeah.
Why? I don't. That sounds okay. Now I really sound like a bad scientist, but
yeah.
Like I said, we're so fragile, right? We're so inefficient, right? Like with our biology, right? Like,
I disagree. So what I think happens, this is how it starts. So step by step, the human race doesn't want to erase itself. Okay? So that, unless it happens by accident, it's not going to happen, right? Step by step, we go, how do we make the biology of the human body more efficient? So in other words, how do I make sure that when I eat something really bad for me, that my body doesn't take it and store it as fat? There's a few different ways you can do that. Right now, we're in the preventative stage, which is what we did at 100 miles an hour when we were adding ethanol to our gas. Right? So then you look at, okay, I'm going to create a stomach, a synthetic stomach that burns the fat off of the food that we eat and then allows us to digest that food. So this becomes progressively increasing until eventually the insides of a human body become almost mechanical. Okay?
You're just like, okay.
No.
Yes,
I'm not describing the same thing.
You are describing
this is
the
not the
exact
same thing. No. It happens in steps. So what I'm getting at is that the steps of this maybe eventually gets to a point where we do create a body, a synthetic body for the human mind. So I'm saying that we're not birthing a new AI. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're taking the human biology and merging it into technology. It's different.
And I'm saying, why would we want a human mind in such an advanced thing when the human mind we know is so,
because
inefficient? And
I'm telling you right now, okay. And I hope in like 100 years you roll over in your grave and you laugh at me because you were right and we created a synthetic AI that can do creative things. Feelings, although we've had this conversation, you believe that comes across as a weakness in some respects, right? I disagree in that 100%. So, as an example, how am I going to make my business better if I don't feel like I'm backed into a corner?
Okay, what I'm saying is if I'm talking about pure progress, pure moving forward, right? If we are trying to move everything forward, right? We're all trying to go somewhere, right? The human race isn't just here. Like right now we're trying to get to other planets. But I think on a long enough timeline, we're gonna realize that.
Are you talking like 1 million years from now, 2 million years from now?
I might be, honestly. It
okay.
Might be. I know that's a lot. Like we're talking philosophically, right? Like I'm
sure.
just saying, there's gonna come a point where we realize that the efficient thing to do is like humans aren't that great.
I'm gonna tell you what the most efficient thing is. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
Going back to a time when and a technology that allows us to keep ourselves healthy and then erasing time. Right? So we talk about time as a infinite number, and it's an infinite string of things that occur over a period of time. But what I'm saying is you go back to a day, right, when we're all living in small camps. And within that small camp, we would have technology that would provide us with clean water, things like that, rather than this large-scale industrial community that we've become.
Right.
Computers will have evaporated at that point. The only thing that matters is the well-being of the people around you and self-preservation. That's what humans are built to do. And somehow we've let it run away to become this big thing. This is why, no matter who you are, you like to go camping. Whether it be in a cabin, at the top of a mountain somewhere, or it's...
You just want to be in nature.
In this like fancy-ass hotel at the top of a mountain. You want... Your driver is to relieve stress. So there's two ways this goes. One, we kill each other, and there's only a small sect left. This is what we think. There's some speculation that maybe this is what happened with the Aztecs.
You're talking,
right, and the Egyptians and stuff. Is that they had all this leftover technology from a previous advanced civilization, whether it be alien or human, and somehow we wiped each other off the face of the planet, with the exception of two very advanced peoples of in different places on the planet. I believe that is more likely to happen, right? Nature resets itself.
So I think what you're describing is what people call the Great Filter. The Great Filter is described as sort of a point where a civilization reaches where either they destroy themselves,
yep,
or they catapult forward,
yep,
right? And I think that we're very close. I think that's
we're
where
at a critical point.
We are near
within the next
Great
100
Filter.
years,
right?
Yeah.
Because we have the capability to kill everyone right now,
sure,
easily.
Yeah.
So either that happens, or we sort of throw off the chains of. Okay, here's what I think the best thing that could possibly happen for humans, for just our civilization right now, is for aliens to come, like, or for us to discover an alien species, or
yeah, probably, because then instead of fighting with ourselves, we'll know that we can fight with other people.
Because then it's not America versus Russia versus China.
It's Earth versus whatever other planet.
Earth. It's humans versus them, right?
Yeah.
Or not even versus necessarily, but suddenly we realize
that's how humans just interact in general. At least at this point in stage in our life, is like everybody wants to fight.
Right.
I mean, our generation's getting better about wanting peace. And we're finding different ways to.
I think that's the thing the internet has done, is shown that we're all really, really similar. I mean, there's people, I've played games with people literally on the other side of the planet,
yeah,
right? Which is insane, but also comforting that we're all much more similar than they try to. All of these differences they try to point out in us are so small compared to what makes us alike, right? What I'm saying is, in a million years, I think everybody's gonna go, human bodies are kind of worthless. Like they're annoying to maintain, right?
I think you're gonna have factions, right? I think this is the same conversation, and I forget who made it. The guy that made Star Trek probably had the same conversation with a friend, created the humans on Earth and the Borg in space.
Yeah.
There's going to be a faction shift.
Oh, God, I think I'm on the Borg side. That can't be good.
You are on the Borg side. One mind, hive mind. Humans are weak. We expand by consuming humans and turning them into us.
Well, it's not exactly that, but I think humans just need to... We're going to go, you know what? It's just more efficient. It's just better. Like,
but that's why the Borg are half human, half robot. Because, I mean, they erase feeling and they keep the logic. You see?
Right.
And the humans continue to explore, while the logical brain for survival is consume. Right? So it's different.
Right.
It's exploring and expanding versus consuming.
Right. Okay, I agree with what you're saying. But
no. There is no but.
There is a
no,
but.
No. Because think about it. Think about it. Right?
There's a big old butt right there. There's a fat old butt right in the middle.
No. Think about it for a second. We're in the consume phase. The only thing left is to expand and explore. We did the expanding and exploring for millions of years. And now we're finally to a point where there are very few corners of the earth that we haven't discovered. So the exploring and the expanding has stopped to some degree.
Right.
The next thing to do is to expand again. So we're gonna hit that exploration phase. Borg do nothing but consume and dominate.
I am not advocating for consuming the human race, but what I am saying is, at some point we're going to go, we want to expand. We want to go out. the human body is an incredibly inefficient.
Oh, this is a completely different statement than what you're making this entire time. You're saying create an AI that is strong enough and durable enough to go out into space and explore for us while we stay back home where it's safe and we're not vulnerable to...
Not exactly. But kind of. I mean, yes, but no. Because I think that what is the point of getting humans to those places, right? Like...
Self-preservation.
I guess I just don't have... I think that once we've...
This is why you don't want to have kids.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're like...
Because
what good does me having a kid do for the rest of the world?
Because
nothing.
Being a human is hard, right?
No. Being a human is easy. You self-improve, and then you hope, like you have a kid, right? This is the self-preservation part. You instill within that person, that little person, all of the knowledge that you've accumulated throughout your entire life, in hopes that they will take that forward and make the lives of their peers better. That is the goal of every human being on Earth, except for you.
Except for me.
And people like you.
But here's what I'm saying. Being a human is difficult, right? You've got to eat. You've got to sleep. You've got to work. You've got to...
It's not difficult. It's time consuming.
But that's the problem with humans. We don't have time, right? We don't.
We do. We have plenty of time because we take our knowledge, we pass it on to our kids, and then that continues on, generation to generation.
Yes and no. I mean, think of... Okay.
Unless you have a kid that is completely incapable of learning and expanding thought, which is impossible, by the way. There are some that start at rock bottom and they stay at rock bottom for whatever the hell reason, like, people that I know. But that's because they don't have any self-drive to move forward.
Which I understand. Like, I totally understand those people because we always, we're talking about moving forward, but where, right? What I'm saying is, apparently I'm the only human in the world who thinks this, but now that we know that animals, which we are just animals, are vulnerable, inefficient. Our knowledge is finite.
What is your definition of efficiency?
Good question. Not having to eat a certain amount of calories to keep it running, right? I mean, anything, but...
Let me give you my definition of efficiency.
Okay.
Efficiency is automating the things that don't matter, the things that take incredible amounts of time, because it's just manual labor. So, as an example, if I have somebody that has to gather a ton of information and compile it in such a way that when they look at it, they understand what it is they're doing, that's inefficient. If I had a dashboard of some kind, right? One pager that just says, this is all that information you needed in order to do your job. That's incredibly efficient. That person going to lunch that day does not break efficiency. Because the human mind, if you consider for a moment, that the human mind can move fast enough to reply to all these people, to do all of these things in a 4-hour period of time. These are things that require trains of thought, right? There's this new process that just spun up in this other area because of a compliance thing that the government's pushing down. How do we accommodate that in an efficient manner? A computer can't do that.
Yet.
You're advocating for allowing computers to be more than what they should be, which is you take the baseline bullshit. No. Give me a second, okay? You take the baseline bullshit, the stuff that doesn't matter, the information gathering, the analysis of things, and you give that to the computers, I think this is actually Bill Gates' side of the fight as well. Like, and then you're like on the Stephen Hawking side, which is like, oh, AI is going to fuck us all up and we're all going to die.
Not in a bad way. I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, it's still a legacy. You're still building towards a legacy. But my point is that humans don't have to go extinct because we created this new thing to keep our legacy going.
Okay. I'm going to give you a hypothetical here. Okay. Or not necessarily hypothetical. We create an AI, right? That mimics like a human mind. Almost exactly, right? Has emotions, has feelings.
Okay. Well, right away, that's already flawed.
Why?
Well, you're talking about self-preservation and the advancement of the human race. But the fact of the matter is that there's going to be a subsect of people that need to be logical.
Yeah.
Right? And so you would then have to create a computer that has no emotions so that it can provide the logic when emotions are running rampant. Again, emotions are what drive exploration and expansion, not logic. Logic doesn't provide that for us.
Why wouldn't it?
Logic dictates that you can always improve on your position where you are without expanding. There's no need for you to expand because you're just improving the efficiencies of what you're using. So instead of taking fuel and continuing to burn pure fuel, you're burning fuel plus something else.
But I think that logic is eventually going to lead to exploration, right? If you follow a logical path and you say,
I disagree.
Well, I think you're saying, okay, well, we're getting more efficient with the things we have here. We
Yeah, but logic doesn't dictate that you need to. How do I put this? Logically, my business works, but I can't bring people in and keep them there with logic. Logic doesn't do that for people, nor would it do that for a computer that has an emotion, right? Because it would stale out and they would get bored of it and not do it anymore.
I don't think that's how it would go. I think it would go.
Yeah, I mean, boredom's a problem.
But boredom is a human emotion, right? Okay, so
you're taking boredom out of the equation for a robot, but boredom is also the place that we go in our heads to be creative. When you're bored, and there's factual evidence behind this, by the way. When you're bored, you spend more time thinking about creative ways to do things. And then when you do that, you start asking yourself questions. And then if you answer those questions, and this is how I try to coach my employees as well. If you start to answer those questions, you're doing self-improvement. And if you're doing self-improvement, you're doing self-growth. And if you're doing self-growth, that's expansion and exploration. You cannot get that out of an AI without boredom. And boredom is like... I'm frustrated because I can't find the words for it. Right? The emotion is the self-driver. That's self-preservation. If you don't provide that to an AI, it's not going to want to expand. It's going to want to consume. It's going to take the inefficient things and wipe it out. Humans, as an example.
Right.
That's what logic does. No. That's what logic does.
I'm on the Borg side.
Yeah. It literally removes and erases the inefficiencies because there's no need for it.
Right. I think that.
Whereas with exploration and expansion, we do try to make things, combined with logic, we do try to make things more efficient. Gas with ethanol. However, it takes time. It takes a lot of energy. And it's, as you put it, inefficient. But at the end of the day, the inefficiency isn't with the people, it's with the process the people use. So, as an example, capitalism is what's making this slow. If we remove capitalism and we have leadership in place, right, top to bottom, that inspires the people to do things for free, right? So we have a tribe over here. Let's assume this tribe focuses solely on building certain kinds of technology. This tribe here does nothing but research for space exploration or something like that. This tribe does this. This tribe does that. And the problem isn't with the emotional side of it. It's with the logic. If I'm doing something for you, what are you doing for me? So if you start to put that into a larger picture, now you have these leaders in place that all believe what this overall leader believes, right? This leader believes that and JFK is a good example, he managed to do it with capitalism, which is incredible, okay? He created a group of people in NASA that worked as these tribes do, although they got paid, but they worked as these tribes do, traded the information, worked together to get us to the moon in a very short period of time. We can accomplish that same thing, but none of this conversation has anything to do with emotions or logic. This conversation is leadership.
Okay.
Leadership with vision reaps rewards for expansion, for an incredible amount of growth with individual people, communities, etc. As another example, my mom complains all the time about how there's, we're giving all this money to these other countries and we're not providing for our own military that are sitting on the side of the road. Why? And my argument is, if you care that much, go around, start a petition, get people to sign stuff, get people to give you money. Okay? Then go out and buy yourself a general contractor, have him build something for you, and then go to the guy that you talk about all the time on the side of the street that you feel bad for, just a 1-bed, 1-bath, nothing crazy house, right? He comes in and he lives there for free. Now you've given him a place to stay. You've helped him get at least half of what he needs in order to go find a job. Place to stay and water. That's it. You give it to him for 3 months. Then you find out that he went and got himself a job because he was clean and presentable. He has a place to stay with a roof over his head, and he's able to clean up his act. That's true leadership. It's community by community basis, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the people at the top, although it helps to have a leader in place with that kind of vision.
Okay, in my mind, we can give all of those things to people, right? We have the capability to make sure that people are fed, people have a place to stay, right? What you just described sounded horrifying, right? You have to go out and raise money, right? It all comes down to money, really. I think it's
capitalism.
Right, capitalism.
That's what I'm saying. That's the problem. It's capitalism. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Oh, okay, cool. So we're kind of on the same board. But yeah.
Well, sort of. Again, there are people. I gave you at least one example, JFK, right? Who was able to do exactly what I mentioned within the capitalism framework. So if you had multiple JFKs, examples, Virgin Airlines, right? Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, if those four are able to have leaders in place, top to bottom throughout the entire hierarchy, okay? By the way, if you're an employee, you can still be a leader.
Right.
Leaders inspire. That's the point, right? So if I can inspire people, top to bottom, in my organization to do something for the greater good, it works in capitalism. What occurs is, and this is the unfortunate part, this happened in the 80s, there was a shift in mentality. So if I talk to my grandfather, as an example, if I talk to my grandfather and I say, the bank's not treating me well, or, my job in general is not treating me well, they're not doing this or not doing that for me, he's going to respond with, you should just shut your mouth, do your job, because they're taking care of you, and they will take care of you from the day you started to the day you die. Right? That ideal, although it's shifting back to that, is false. For I would say from 1985 to 2012. And the reason, and even now, right? Although it's shifting, it just takes time. It really does. It takes 3 to 10 years to really shift. You gotta. The way I put it is, you're taking the Titanic that's in full motion and pivoting it in a different direction, right? That's really hard to do. It takes time.
Yeah.
So what he didn't understand by that statement was, my company's not taking care of me like they used to take care of you. My company's not doing this. It's not doing that. Because in the 80s, they focused so much on making money. People were drinking at work. They were doing coke. They just did whatever they wanted to, right? And the people didn't matter. It only mattered that we were making money.
Profit, yeah.
Yeah. Profit margins were key. Back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there was pride behind what you did. There was this, what you're talking about. Everybody was on the same place. They wanted to improve the state of the United States. Yes. And by doing that, they wanted peace. That's why you started seeing those peace things going on. And that's why we're seeing it again today, right? Because our generation, like the ones in the 60s and 70s, had this ideal that we wanted the whole world to be at peace. Because we don't like to fight. There's no reason to fucking fight. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, there is no reason for a war, right? No. Ever. Because it's all, I consider it misunderstandings, but, you know, it like they say in Rent, the opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation, right? Because war is nothing but destruction. It's waste. I just want to reach a point where it seems cruel that we have the resources to take care of everyone and we don't, right? And you say why, right? Like, why?
Capitalism,
right? It comes down to...
Let me ask you this, okay? And this is why these steps are important. The question that comes out of this is, what do I get out of it? What does Sears get out of by taking a bunch of food and shipping it over to Africa? Nothing. Because they don't make any money. So, like, let's do this scenario, right? Let's say that Walmart decides to open up a store in Central Africa somewhere where there's literally no, like, it's dirt roads, you know, they're still grabbing their water out of the ground, that sort of thing, right? They're not industrialized, third world countries. Let's say that Walmart decides to do that. What does Walmart get out of that? They're not getting any of their money. People are coming in and more than likely stealing the food.
Here's what I'm saying. Why do we care about any of these places? Why do we care about any of these businesses? Businesses are not people. No matter what citizens...
Businesses are people.
Businesses are not people.
Have you...
Listen, people are people, right? People make up a business, sure. But a corporation is not a person. No matter what no matter what Citizens United wants to tell us. Corporations are not people, right? Okay, say tomorrow you had $1 billion, right? What can you do with $1 billion? You. I'm talking just you. I'm saying without giving it away. You know, what could you do with it? That would really. Here's what I'm trying to say. There is a certain level of wealth that
feels redundant,
right? Even beyond that, it's like they said. What did they say? $70,000 is where people feel comfortable, right? Where they is that
yeah, right
it's
about that.
something about that where they say after that it's not, you don't really feel different, right?
Mm.
I guess I'm just calling for a full like French Revolution, tear down the bourgeoisie. Like,
well, you can't. So the problem with that is you can't trust everybody. So you asked me what I would do with $1 billion. I'd buy myself a reasonable house. I'd take $1 million of it and stick it in a savings account, a high interest savings account. I can live off of that for the rest of my life. I wouldn't work a day. Okay. Then I could take another couple million, give it to my parents. They can do the same thing.
Look, that's what I'm saying. All this is attainable, right? We have the ability to make everybody comfortable, right? But it's the few people who are taking everything that stop us from being that way.
Now we're just getting political. You're talking about the top 10th of the top 1%.
Right, yeah, I am. But I think there's going to come a point, back to my original Borg side. All of this stuff are human problems, right? Once we create a machine, or look,
no, because the process remains the same. The thought process for the machine has emotions, right? As a machine on pure logic, going back to the Borgs, hive mind, they all have the same logic instilled within them. So they're all going to work towards the general purpose of more efficient ways to live. So they're going to find ways to do that without exploration and expansion, without changing anything, because they all have the same logical outcome. Logic is linear. Okay? Emotional growth is expansive. So me not making any money, however, having this want, this drive to have a business, to create a community for people to come in and sit at my business and have a conversation with people of like mind, that would never happen in an AI scenario because they all think the same way. Now, let's assume for a moment that we program each individual AI to think differently. We're still having the same conversation, except now we're robots.
Right. Good. That's what I want. That's what
Why?
I'm saying. Because
that's inefficient. This conversation is incredibly inefficient.
Well, yeah, of course, but that's because we're still stuck in stupid human bodies.
No, but you understand that what you're saying is, I want a human that's in an AI body having the same fucking conversation. That's inefficient. That literally takes what you want and just erases everything that you've said.
No, it doesn't. It goes. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So now, say we have a brain in a robot body, right? No more eating, no more sleeping, no more having to exercise, no more any of that, right? Now you are infinitely more efficient.
That's
right?
not true.
Says who? How not?
How many times do you go out for a run, right? And you get a random thought. Hey, that'd be really cool if I could do that. Or even this philosophical conversation. You'd be running or walking or whatever it is that you're doing. You'll see something. It'll distract you for a moment. And boom. Think about Isaac Newton. We would have never known about gravity had he not been bored up under a tree and an apple hit him in the head. That is how this works. You have to be bored. If there's a computer that is constantly working, it goes towards the logical path 100% of the time. There is no time to recollect. There's no time to defrag, right? There's no time for any of that because you're constantly moving. That's not efficient because there's no growth. So the only way that you can go with AI is logic.
For now. What I'm saying...
For eternity. I completely disagree. Unless you're looking... Let's say we never find another species, but we want to create one. Well, we create one. We create a world for that species. Let's say we put them on the moon and let them blossom and grow, and we observe how we evolved in certain ways. So let's say we decide, I'm going to build a robot that sits on the moon, and there's 2 of them, and we teach them how to recreate by building themselves. And so we give them enough resources to do that, and we put them back in caveman mind. and we see how long it takes them to evolve into something else. And we observe them as opposed to creating an entirely new species that is supposed to supersede the humans. You understand? So there are different ways and methods that you can do exactly what you're saying without impeding on the human life. I don't know why you feel like there's this end point for humans.
There's an end point for every human, right? When we die, every human has an end point.
No, it doesn't work that way, because we have kids, and those kids continue our legacy. The legacy in and of itself is the continuation of your lifeline. And if you don't see it that way, I'm sorry.
No.
That's just how
but here's
it
what I'm
is.
saying. Like, think that is an efficiency, right?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Because, okay, I get all this. This is me. I get all this knowledge. Boom. Okay. Then I have a kid. And now I have to transfer all of this knowledge to that kid, right?
Sure.
That is incredibly inefficient to move forward. When instead, we could have computers that have all that information, and takes that information never has to be passed.
So how about
never
we do
has
this?
to be fragmented.
How about we do it this way? Why don't we create a database that has all of that information? We take a chip and we stick it in our head. Problem solved. You didn't have to wipe off an entire species of people to be more efficient. But you literally just plugged yourself into the internet.
But you still have to eat. You still have to sleep. You still have to exercise. You still
and
have
meanwhile,
to
your brain is hooked into the fucking internet. You're searching the internet while you're eating, while you're drinking, while you're sleeping.
Right. Why would we want to? Why would you want to do that in a human body when you could do it in a body where you don't have to do all that stuff?
Because it's still good to be bored. We're going to have to agree to disagree. We're at like an hour, 15 minutes.
Anyway, so in closing, humans are awful and we should get rid of them. My people will rise. I am a robot. This is the point where I tell you. No. Okay. Well.
I think this has been a good one. I know it kind of went off on a tangent, but at the end of the day,
all of it is a tangent. Everything's a tangent.
Yeah,
Stay woke.
But this will definitely be one of those episodes that's just nice to listen to without having to listen to all the technical stuff of gaming and whatever. So I still like the format.
I think this is gonna be divisive.
Yeah, I imagine this is gonna be like picked apart, and then people are gonna put it up on Twitter like, man, listen to these guys, they suck.
I think in a million years, all the robots are gonna be like, the pre-man Devin said all of this would happen. He was correct.
All right. That being said, there's no call to action in this one, so we're just gonna.
No, this is the same call to action as we usually have, which is respect each other, love each other, care for each other until you're a robot.
All right, and without all the hippie shit.
Hey, sometimes the hippies have it right. Okay. But yeah, go ahead.
For the great, I don't know. I was just trying to stop. Just trying to stop the hippie stuff.
Love each other.
Stop the hippies.
Respect each other.
All right, that's where we're at.
Respect each other. Care for each other. Be awesome to each other. And good luck and have fun.
This has been Josh.
And Devin. Good luck, have fun. Bye.